You can thank your ancestors for the strange traits you inherited. From the way you drive your car to whether or not you'll go on a second date with that guy you met at Barnes & Noble, these weird traits are just a few examples of things you got from your parents. It turns out your dislike for mornings could be because of mom and dad. A study published in Nature Communications in 2019, one of the largest ever recorded, followed over 500,000 participants' sleep patterns each and every night. Their research found that sleep traits are, in fact, inherited. As the University of Exeter summarized, there are a whopping 78 regions of genes responsible for how much sleep a person needs each and every night. While this genetic discovery does help explain why some people simply require more sleep than others, there's more to it than just that. The amount of sleep a person gets or doesn't get has been linked to an array of other problems, such as insomnia, diabetes, and even heart disease. These diseases are ones that can then be found throughout families, the university explained. Sleep is really just the start of it. Researchers believe these findings to be a big breakthrough when it comes to understanding how long-term diseases develop from family member to family member. Suffice to say, too much or too little sleep can seriously screw up your day.
With insomnia, nothing's real. Everything's far away. Everything's a copy of a copy of a copy.
If you find yourself sneezing whenever you're under bright lights, it's not just some wacky quirk. And no, you're also not allergic to the sun. Photic sneeze reflex is a real condition, and one that you can likely blame your parents for. People with this reflex sneeze as soon as they experience a sudden change in the amount of light around them. Funnily enough, this condition is also known as autosomal dominant compelling helio-ophthalmic outburst, aka ACHOO syndrome. A lot of people may not even realize they have it, and plenty of others likely don't know there's a name for it. Although scientists really don't understand why it happens, photic sneeze reflex affects anywhere from 11 to 35% of the population, according to the Mayo Clinic. The condition is a dominant trait, so if just one of your parents has it, you have a 50-50 shot of acquiring it too. While some foods may seem like they're an acquired taste, you may have your parents to thank for your palate, or at least your sweet tooth. A 2008 study published in Physiological Genomics has shown that your love for desserts is genetic. Your sweet tooth stems from a gene that is responsible for sensing glucose. Researchers found that those with a change to this gene, called glucose transporter type 2, enjoyed more sugar on a daily basis.
I have my dessert first.
Oh.
Though this may not seem so healthy, here's a second study that's even more satisfying. Research performed by the University of Copenhagen in 2018 found that those people with this alternate gene have less body fat, oddly enough. Even those researchers who were involved in the study were surprised. Co-author Niels Groerup said, "It sort of contradicts common intuition that people who eat more sugar should have less body fat. Although they found that the difference in body fat may only be minimal, it may just be the excuse you need for that second brownie." According to research, your popularity has a lot to do with your parents. A 2009 study out of Harvard University found that the kind of friends you find yourself hanging out with is indeed, quote, strongly heritable. Harvard sociology professor Nicholas Christakis explained, saying, "In fact, the beautiful and complicated pattern of human connection depends on our genes to a significant measure. Researchers even found that, thanks to your genes, your role in your circle of friends is often similar to that of your family members. One possible explanation for why we seemingly inherit our place in social groups has to do with basic human survival. If a potentially fatal germ begins to spread throughout an area, people who find themselves at the edges of the group are less likely to be infected. But those who find themselves at the center of it all have access to information that can help give guidance to the group. Both kinds of people are needed for a society to survive. So this instinct is essentially built into our DNA. Even if you think you're cooler than your parents, the science says otherwise."
Ugh, as if!
If your driving skills aren't the best, just point the finger at your folks. It turns out that 30% of Americans have a gene variation that limits an essential protein from being produced in the brain. This protein, called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, keeps brain cells communicating while at work on a task, like driving.
Remember, the car is you. You are the car. Okay? Let's ride!
A 2009 study conducted by the University of California, Irvine, found that people who had this specific gene were 20% more likely to perform worse in a driving test when compared to others who did not possess the gene. Interestingly, the drivers with the BDNF gene not only made more mistakes, but researchers also noticed that the participants' memories were worse when it came to remembering how to properly turn the wheel. While more research is certainly needed, at least you have someone else to blame for your fender bender, right? Spiders, heights, and bears. Oh my! If any or all of these terrifying terms make you cringe deep down to your core, it could be because of your genetic makeup. According to anxiety.org, most phobias are commonly passed down from a family member. Thanks, Mom. Although scientists still aren't sure exactly why this is, there are a few possible explanations. Phobias usually manifest in childhood and can be caused by witnessing someone experiencing something horrifying or even just hearing a horrible story from Uncle Gus at Thanksgiving dinner. However, there is likely more science to it than that. One study published in JAMA Psychiatry back in 2003 found that twins can inherit the same type of fears, which goes to show it's more than just learned behavior. Luckily, many phobias can be addressed through therapy if they eventually get too extreme. And, well, you know who to send the bill to. If you're tone deaf, you should know that you are not alone. In fact, there's a good chance someone else in your family also has the musical impairment, which is also known as congenital amusia. Additionally, 4% of the world's population is tone deaf. A 2007 study published in the American Journal of Human Genetics set out to understand exactly why some people cannot properly identify different pitches. Researchers uncovered that those who are unable to keep a tune have less white matter in the right inferior frontal cortex of their brains, which causes a weaker connection when processing songs and other sounds. Harvard Medical School even revealed from brain scans that the more tone deaf a person is, the thinner the white matter in their brain is. Now that there's finally an explanation for your impairment, you can hum a happy tune. Or maybe not. Taking care of your teeth may be a personal choice that you have power over, but you will soon discover that the dental problems you have are in large part due to your genes. Even if your parents taught you awesome oral hygiene habits when it comes to keeping your chompers clean, you may still be at higher risk for dental issues. According to Delta Dental, various versions of the gene beta defensin 1 are responsible. While you may brush and floss the recommended twice per day, these genes are more likely to get you a cavity. Luckily, cavities are treatable. Leaving your teeth untreated, however, can lead to gum disease and even losing them altogether. Genetics are also responsible when it comes to the shape of your jaw. This can create crowded teeth, an overbite, or an underbite that could warrant braces. That's right, folks. Your parents are who to blame for your metal mouth in middle school. Hi, Billy. We all experience pain in completely different ways. Research has shown, however, that the way we tolerate distress could be because of mom and dad. Science says it's hard to pinpoint a specific gene, though, because there are several at play when it comes to pain. But your genetic makeup has a lot to do with it. One specific review published in Oral Diseases in 2009 found that the way a person experiences pain is linked to their sex, age, and even race, and thus inherited from your parents. One study cited in the review focused on twins in particular and found that half of their responses to pain were due to genetics. A person's environment has an effect on pain tolerance as well. Of course, all these different factors help explain why it's so difficult for researchers to distinguish any specific gene. There are countless combinations. The color of your eyes is determined by your parents, but you may not have realized that the actual colors you see with them are as well. Color blindness can even be inherited if your parents aren't colorblind. They just have to be carrying the gene to pass it along. According to Colorblind Awareness, if you are colorblind, it means the instructions for the development of your cone cells are faulty, and the cone cells might be missing, or less sensitive to light. Or it may be that the pathway from your cone cells to your brain has not developed correctly. On the opposite end of the color spectrum is tetrachromacy. It's possible for your parents to pass along the gene for an extra cone, giving you the ability to see a fourth dimension of color, while most people only see three.
And none of us sees the world around us the same way.
Because it's carried in the X chromosome, women are more likely to have it. In fact, about 12% of women carry an extra cone in their eyes, according to a 2010 study published in the Journal of Vision. While genetics may have given you a not-so-athletic body, your dislike of diving into the world of workouts could have been passed along by your parents too. A 2014 study of rats published in the Journal of Physiology revealed that wanting to exercise, or not, could be inherited. And it's not just because you never watched your parents work out while growing up. Researchers found that rats that weren't excited about exercising actually had specific kinds of neurons in their brains that hadn't completely matured. This had a large effect on cell cycles and pathways that our genes are responsible for creating. Interestingly enough, the study also found that incorporating just a little exercise early on in life was enough to counter being a total couch potato, or whatever the rat equivalent of that is. Of course, more research is needed to study if this is also true in humans, but the study's author believes the data suggests it is. Some people just can't live without their morning cup of coffee, and there's a scientific reason they can't seem to stay awake without it: genetics.
There's some reason that my coffee isn't here. Has she died or something?
Not everybody has the ability to taste the bitterness that coffee lovers crave, and a single gene called the PTC gene is what's responsible. According to the Genetic Science Learning Center at the University of Utah, there are quite a few different forms of this gene that help form our feelings toward foods, and the amount of bitterness we're willing to bite down on or gulp. The university explained, since all people have 2 copies of every gene, combinations of the bitter taste gene variants determine whether someone finds PTC, which is similar in bitterness to coffee, intensely bitter, somewhat bitter, or without taste at all. Research published in Scientific Reports in 2018 found that those with the bitter-loving form of this gene were more likely to drink at least 4 cups of coffee every day. Yes, your genetics may have just helped create your caffeine habit. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Health Digest videos about health and wellness are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.